On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the show. Senator Rand Paul has been trying desperately for years to get Dr. Anthony Fauci behind bars for allegedly lying about the origins of COVID-19. Where did this virus come from? We were told everything. We were told it came from a bat. We were told it came from a pangolin, or whatever, how you say it. We were told it came from a pangolin having sex with a bat. We were told it came from the wet market. But then people came up with this theory that it came from the lab, the Wuhan coronavirus lab in Wuhan, where this pandemic originated from. And everyone was like, oh, no, you can't say that. It's not from there. We're going to cancel your YouTube channel. Well, let's fast forward to 2026, a Senate Homeland Security hearing.
Given Senator Paul's obvious obsession with calling for my prosecution aimed at embarrassing and intimidating me, the only conclusion I can reach is that the sole reason he is calling me before this committee is to get me to say something, anything, that could vindicate his repeated public pledges that I end up, in his words, quote, behind bars, unquote.
Fauci pled the fifth 111 times. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley just has his way with Fauci. Guy's always entertaining.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, nothing says honesty like taking the fifth, huh, Doc? Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color's the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to
This is a circus.
answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyers sitting behind you now shifting nervously in their chairs. They know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people. But I think I know why you're doing it. It's because you don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic, you got rich, didn't you? You got rich while people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich. And not only were you doing that, you were using federal employees with taxpayer money to apply for and solicit cash prizes for you personally. Cash prizes totaling over $1 million. You did all of that during the pandemic, didn't you? That's a question.
I wrote the
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
You wanted to be the sun god of science. You wanted to be the guy who was in charge of it all. You wanted to lambast Trump. You wanted to make sure that nobody else stole your spotlight. You wanted to be the guy. You had time to sit for InStyle magazine. Here's what you were doing with your time. You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you can't answer questions for the American people. You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you're here taking the fifth. You could sit for InStyle magazine and get $1 million in cash awards. But now the cat's got your tongue. I bet he does. I tell you what, here's my conclusion from all of this. This was really all about you the whole time. Somewhere along the way, you lost your way. You may have been a good public servant at one time. I don't know. But I can tell you from reading your emails now, from looking at what you did, how you used your employees, somewhere along the line, it became all about you. You became a narcissist and a megalomaniac and a liar. And you've lied to the American people, and you've lied to this body. And you've disgraced your profession by doing it. You called yourself the most famous scientist in the world. You've done more to harm science than anybody in my lifetime. And I hope you'll go home and write that in your diary.
Oh, my God. My buddy and I used to brawl on the phone. I was like, literally, I had 5 masks on, 8 needles hanging out of my arm. I was like, Dr. Anthony Fauci's a good man. I was screaming at it because I was so consumed with CNN at the time. But back then, even Jon Stewart was like, yeah, probably came from the lab. This was from 2021 or 22.
What do you mean by that? Do you mean like
Well, so
this
here's
perhaps there's a chance that this was created in a lab, there's an investigation?
A chance?
Well, but
oh my
if there was
God.
evidence, I'd love to hear it.
There's
I just don't know.
a novel respiratory coronavirus overtaking Wuhan, China. What do we do? Oh, you know who we could ask? The Wuhan novel respiratory coronavirus lab.
Yeah.
The disease is the same name as the lab. That's just a little too weird,
Yeah.
don't you think? And then they ask the scientists, they're like, how did this... So wait a minute, you work at the Wuhan respiratory coronavirus lab. How did this happen? And they're like, a pangolin kissed a turtle?
Yeah.
And you're like, no, the name of your lab. If you look at the name, let me see your business card. Show me your business card. Oh, I work at the coronavirus lab in Wuhan. Oh, because there's a coronavirus loose in Wuhan. How did that happen? Maybe a bat flew into the cloaca of a turkey and then it sneezed into my chili and now we all have coronavirus. Like, come on.
Wait a second.
Wait a second. We're being brought to you by Pfizer. Wait a second. Even Andrew Huberman on Rogan was like, yes, this stuff happens.
But human error happens. So I'm not at all convinced one way or the other that it was a deliberate leak. But the idea that it would leak from a laboratory to a scientist like me who has what's called a wet lab where you know, with solutions and beakers and things of that sort, things happen all the time.
Correct. Just say, yeah, listen, we were doing gain of function. It got out. We're sorry. We're sorry that your, fat uncle who's low on vitamin D died. And listen, I have close friends of the family who died. COVID was absolutely a terrible disease in 2020. People died, no question about it. But if we're lying about where it came from, the truth is going to come out. And that's what Fauci is. Even Senator John Fetterman was in a suit, bro. You know that it's going down.
Not about much more your regrets, but I have one. And that is early on that there was the theory that the virus could have emerged from the lab. And early on that became like a right-wing kinds of theory. And I thought it seemed to make sense. Now, there was a really advanced lab that was close by, and then you have this unknown virus out. So, but that became a very partisan thing.
What do they say? The most simple explanation is probably the explanation of something. Not everybody is sold, though. Gay Harvey Levin had a lot of friends die in the 80s from AIDS and HIV.
I have not used TMZ's YouTube channel to vent personal feelings about issues, but I'm going to do that today. Watching Anthony Fauci before a congressional hearing taking the Fifth Amendment is just one of the most heartbreaking things I have seen in government in my lifetime. And this is something we need to reckon with. That I'm going to say up front, I have problems the way the CDC handled COVID. I think that they did damage to children, to adults, and I don't think they did it maliciously. I think they did it because they were using their judgment and were overprotective, and I think at times overstated things they said they knew but really didn't. And I have personal problems with the way that COVID was handled. That said, Anthony Fauci, over a period of decades, has been an amazing public servant. In the 80s, I had many friends who died of AIDS, a horrible, painful death. And I had friends who lived because of Anthony Fauci, because he was willing to look at experimental drugs in a different way than they had looked at them before. And that really resulted in lives saved.
All right, so what's next for Fauci? Senator Rand Paul has a scheduled committee vote next week, targeted for around August 5th, on a resolution holding Fauci in contempt of Congress for refusing to answer. We know that when you plead the fifth, it doesn't mean guilty, but drop a comment on where you stand, guys, on Dr. Anthony Fauci.